And we are live.
All right, everybody. Today is the 26th day of October. This is our special council meeting, Village Council of Gulf Manor. And if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to get the meeting started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I'm going to make a call for quorum, and then I'd like to make a couple acknowledgements right off the start. Mr. Lanzer, can you do a call for quorum?
Mr. Betcher.
Present.
Ms. Cheney.
Present.
Mr. Knitt.
Here.
Mr. Pridnoff.
Here.
Ms. Snyder.
Here.
Mr. Van Harn.
Here.
All members present.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lanzer. First off, I'd like everyone to please join us in honoring the memory of Corporal Adam McMillan of the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, who on Friday succumbed to injuries from an accident while on duty 2 weeks ago. Adam was a 19-year veteran of the Sheriff's Department and an organ donor. I've instructed Gulf Manor Administration to join with the law enforcement colleagues of Corporal McMillan and all public servants throughout Hamilton County who mourn his tragic loss, while being forever thankful for his selfless commitment, dedication, and service to others. At the Sheriff's request, we offer prayers to all the deputies in his department and the families directly affected by the tragic loss. As I believe all of us know, Adam is the brother of Officer Erin McMillan of our own Gulf Manor Police Department, so we keep her specifically in our prayers as well. We also honor the memory of Chuck Whitford, father of our own Lieutenant Chad Whitford of the Gulf Manor PD. Mr. Whitford passed away October 15th at the age of 74. We offer our prayers specifically for Chad, his wife Jill, and the rest of the Whitford family. And I wanted to bring this to everyone's attention as well. You may recall that we took a moment to acknowledge the passing of Chief Patrick Olvey. And this was our current chief's chief when he was coming up through the ranks. And we got a thank you card from them for the flowers that we sent. So I wanted to, says, dear everyone, thank you so much for the beautiful planner. Your kindness is greatly appreciated. Love to everyone, Judy and family. And I believe this is a picture of the planner that we sent them that has been then put into this card. Could I have a motion to review and accept the agenda that we have today?
Motion to review and accept the agenda.
It should actually be a motion to accept it. I'm sorry, I should have said, has everyone had an opportunity to review it? And if so, a motion to accept, please.
Sure. Motion to accept the agenda.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Without objection, I'll take that as unanimous. Let's see, I do not know of anyone who is registered to address council tonight. Do I stand in correction?
That is correct.
Okay. Then our next item will be to approve the minutes that we have to have reviewed over this past course here. Do we have any questions about the minutes or any requests for addendums to it, changes?
I sent in just two simple typo corrections to Andy and Ron to be picked up in the final minutes.
All right. Any others? All right, then I'll ask for a motion for the approval of the minutes from October 12th, 2020.
So
I'll
moved.
make a motion.
Oh, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Without objection, I'll take that as unanimous. My understanding is that the The next thing that I see on here is Little Miami Fire District Chief report, but my understanding is he does not have a report tonight. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. So we will get into my report and announcements here.
Mayor Densmore?
Yes.
I thought they might report the cookie sale results from one of our residents.
Would you like to do that during your report?
Oh, I see. Okay, my apologies. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, the chief has a report which is separate from the district report.
Sorry, I got confused. Sorry.
Very okay. I'm going to start off, I got several items. I'm going to start off with a COVID update, and I'll note that the data numbers included in this portion of the report is provided by the Hamilton County Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency Emergency Operations Center. So they elected officials this report. I pulled the newest stuff off of it and put it into my report. So this past Friday, the state of Ohio reported the highest single day increase of COVID-19 cases, reporting 2,518 new cases. 9 of the 11 highest single day increases have occurred in the past 10 days. Homeland Security says cases are currently doubling in Southwest Ohio every 10 to 14 days. Adult medical surgical bed utilization in Hamilton County has increased to 84% capacity. In Hamilton County, adult critical care bed utilization has increased to 88% capacity. There are no plans currently to delay or cancel elective procedures in Hamilton County hospitals. That's the next step if they start to get to capacity. The Health Collaborative and leaders from regional healthcare networks held a press conference this past Friday and stressed the importance of the members of the public taking personal measures to protect themselves and help keep case numbers and hospitalizations low. Governor DeWine was asked on Friday about the possibility of a new stay-at-home order and responded that this is potentially in the hands of Ohioans. He reiterated that we need to be careful about the events we attend, keep our guard up, keep taking personal measures to slow the spread, such as mask wearing. He says the failure to do these things is what has led to the current dramatic spike in statewide cases. Deer Park junior and senior high schools will be transitioning to remote learning effective immediately through at least November 6th due to active spread of COVID-19 within their buildings. I'm aware that Cincinnati Waldorf grade school is quarantining for 10 days following a student testing positive there. If the quarantine goes well, they plan to return to in-person on Monday, the 2nd of November. Those are the only recent school changes that were brought to my attention. I did not look around at what was going on today, though. These from Friday. Hawksworth Blood Center has seen an increase in the need for blood donations and plasma. It's noted that individuals that have recovered from COVID-19 can still donate. Plasma from former COVID-19 patients has been used as an experimental treatment for COVID-19 patients. Governor DeWine and leaders from the Ohio legislature announced a new COVID-19 relief package that utilizes $429.5 million in State CARES Act funding to provide grants in 6 focus areas. I have that broken down in terms of the different areas and the amount of money. This report will be online when the minutes are approved, and you can look at that then if you're interested. The governor is encouraging the state controlling board to approve his new relief package. That was on the agenda for today. I did not check to see if that was actually approved. Does anybody know? Anyway, the package, with that package's approval, they'll provide up to $10,000 to businesses that employ less than 25 employees and will help at minimum 50 businesses from each of Ohio's 88 counties. Applications will open on November 2nd at businesshelp.ohio.gov. And again, that link will be in my report. I'll be online before the 2nd. I'm calling these the mayor's Halloween recommendations. Some of this is a reiteration of some things that we've said in the past.
Mr. Danforth?
Social.
Oh.
Yes.
A couple questions on that report with the COVID. Did they give any indication on if there was an area specifically, or was it pretty much widespread in terms of the cases spreading amongst
These,
people?
what I'm reporting on is specific to Hamilton County. All right. So no, there was not a more localized sense of that, other than picking out these schools that were in, and the focus on area hospitals. And as I mentioned in one of my previous reports, some of our area hospitals are regional hospitals, meaning they draw folks from out of county, because those folks in the other county don't have a hospital near them. They have to come into our county and use that to get those services. I think the critical part here, as has been said all along, is the capacity of those hospitals to serve. And that's what's at a kind of a critical tipping point right now.
Okay, because I know last time we had the spike, it was a little bit attributed to some of the nursing homes. I wasn't sure if it was not necessarily that example, but something like that had happened, just out of curiosity.
And I have a question actually into to the Hamilton County Health Department, which I'm hoping to have addressed tomorrow, which specifically deals with that color coding system. I have some questions around it that I think any reasonable person that was looking into that works might have. And I'm hoping to be able to address that. I think everyone is in agreement that we're going to be using that color coding system throughout 2021. Hopefully we're going to be looking at the coding system as, are we turning from purple into red yet, or from red into orange yet, or from orange into yellow yet? Looking at those numbers coming down, but we'll certainly be using it through 2021. And I think it's important that we all understand how those color codes come into effect. There's 7 indicators, and basically it has to do with how many of those indicators you're positive on. But I think it's also important to understand within each of those indicators what triggers you meeting that indicator. I think that would be helpful for elected officials. So,
and then my second question was the aid of, was it 476 million? Was that for 50 businesses in each county, or 50 businesses total, or is that?
First off, it's for the entire state for 6 different grant areas. It's 429.5 million. Okay. For the small businesses, it's 125 million. And there's breakdowns of that 400 into different areas like nonprofits and higher education and all that kind of stuff. Within that area of small businesses, what they're looking at, and I think they've done this before, I think this is the second round of this, where if your business has less than 25 employees, you may potentially be eligible for $10,000. All right, okay. But you got to apply for it within the county. They've done kind of like a lottery system for that. But they were ensuring that it will be at least 50 different companies that don't have 25, that have less than 25 employees per county in Ohio.
Okay.
88. They're making sure that it gets spread out that way.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So with the upcoming Halloween celebrations during this pandemic, the recommendations that I've read before include the social distancing. It includes respecting, families that aren't participating. Don't knock on those doors, of course, and wearing masks under masks. And what we'll be doing at our house for the first 3 days after Halloween is limiting the candy consumption of our kids to the number that we can clean off with Clorox type wipes. This is actually recommended by the Hamilton County Health Department for at least the first 72 hours after Halloween. It's my recommendation to follow this guideline just to be safe. While most kids are not high risk if they get COVID-19, most kids are super spreaders wherever they go. I know as a parent, it's really hard to get kids to do anything in a sanitary way. So anyway, the recommendations of the mayor for how to do Halloween. Concerning election preparation, a couple of things here. I want to share the safety procedures in place for those that wish to vote in person here at the municipal building on election day in Gulf Manor. The safety procedures are being implemented by the Hamilton County Board of Elections. Voting booths will be sanitized between each voter, and we will have hand sanitizers and masks for voters. People who plan to vote in person on November 3rd will be required to wear a mask at all times, according to Gwen McFarland, the chair of the Hamilton County Board of Elections. Everyone on council, I'm sure, is aware that we have issue 10 on the ballot. I think it's important that no matter the outcome, we look at this as an opportunity to make the village stronger and not divide us. I'm already engaged in planning some efforts to do that. Basically, there's two scenarios. Scenario 1, issue 10 passes. It will then be council's responsibility to create the commission referenced in the legislation. The referendum petition stayed this process of creating the commission. It's not that we did not finish the task, but could not finish the task until the referendum was resolved. Appointing the commission is the next step in the process and is an opportunity to reinforce inclusivity and reinforce that our village is a welcoming community. One of the ways to do this is to make sure that we have residents on the commission who have had reservations about or even opposed the ordinance. This will be at the discretion of council, but something I'll be advocating for under this first scenario. Under the second scenario, if the issue 10 does not pass, I'll urge council to listen to what the residents of the village have determined and to direct attention to what, if any, next steps we should take to keep Gulf Manor a welcoming community. The bottom line is that no matter the outcome of the election, it's important that we as elected officials serve as a force for village unity. There's a couple policy issues I want to address next. One is a new policy procedure for requests of tax information. Details of this will be in the administrator's report. I approved a new procedure for requests of tax information about residents. The policy ensures the maintenance of privacy required under federal and state law. The next one is council members wishing to consult with the village solicitor. This is a procedural reminder for council members to consult with the village administrator or the mayor prior to reaching out to the village solicitor outside of council meetings. Our legal counsel is paid by the hour, and we put into place a couple years ago a procedure to prevent duplication of questions to the solicitor and to make sure that the questions we're asking him are literally legal uses of his time. I can let the solicitor chime in on this. My understanding is that the funds that pay the solicitor come from the community, and because of that, we legally have to make sure that any time we're paying him has a benefit for the community. As a new council member, I often had questions outside of the council meetings, so I'm hoping no one will take it personally if you get a personal reminder about this. So this is the reminder to council and to your constituents, should they have questions through you to the solicitor, to bring those questions to the administrator or myself first. Next, I have a traffic safety update. I believe this is my last piece here. I'm sure everyone has noticed the new speed humps in the village. I've been an advocate for these since I first joined council, and I'm so happy we have them now. I've been driving around the village inspecting each one just for the pleasure of the experience of driving over them. I want to thank our administration and financial team for figuring out how to do it, and for council for unanimously approving the bid to get the work done. I want to reiterate the words of Councilwoman Cheney, who pointed out in an email this past week that it was our village administrator, Ron Hirth, and Anna Gideon, who laid the village budget foundations that ultimately created the surpluses that made a project like this possible. So thank you, Ron and Anna. Concerning traffic, I also want to bring to your attention that I've met with Chief Campbell and will continue to be meeting with him, working on a framework for an accompanying document or report alongside the mayor's report to include more detail about runs that the police department do each month in the village in a way that doesn't violate anyone's privacy. For instance, the number of traffic stops, the number of parking citations, litter citations. The chief and I will figure out what makes sense to include category-wise to hopefully answer questions for council about the department's activities in the village to address traffic issues, for instance, more than just financial number reporting and reported in the court report. The chief and I agree that this is could be a very helpful communication tool for the police department to the council. And finally, there was a traffic fatality on Langdon Farm Road this past week. Reports say the driver who was killed was hit by a driver coming the opposite direction who crossed the center line. Cincinnati police say excessive speed and impairment do not appear to have played a role in the crash. But despite this, the tragedy has brought a lot of attention to safety improvements that could be made along that road. I want to thank Councilman Van Harn for coming to me with ideas of how we might as a village reach out and support and solidarity with Pleasant Ridge following this accident. Among the ideas presented to me, it's been brought to my attention the efforts on Cincinnati City Council to address these safety concerns. I'm drafting a letter to Mayor Cranley and the city administrator, along with our village administrator, Ron Hirth, to express the importance of addressing the safety concerns along Langdon Farm and our desire to help in any way we can. And as a final thing here, I'd like to ask for a motion from council to support these efforts. So when we're writing this letter, we can say that the whole village agreement, the whole village council is in agreement that we need safety improvements along Langdon Farm. Do I have such a motion of support for these efforts?
I guess it was moved by me in the first place, so I'll make the motion.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Without objection, I will take that as unanimous. Thank you very much. And we will certainly make sure you have a copy of that letter as it goes out. And with that, I will turn things over to our village administrator, Mr. Hirth, for his report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully you can hear me better this evening. Sound should be improved. Thumbs up on that. I hear I've had a problem in the past. REA says, maybe.
A little. It's also got a buzz. I don't know. It's pretty similar.
Okay.
Sounds like you're in a tin can.
Okay. So to affirm what the mayor was talking about in terms of some of the COVID issues, one of the things that I've reminded the staff in the last week about is that we are all suffering from COVID fatigue at this point. As we've had many projects being executed here in the building, there are times when we've not been as vigilant in terms of wearing masks and keeping doors closed. We're in workspaces. So I would remind everybody that when you come down to the municipal building again, and also for election day, the requirement from the village that the Board of Elections is going to honor is that you must wear a mask at all times in the building. I'm not sure if they're checking temperatures or not. I haven't heard that. But the thing to be vigilant about is when you're wearing a mask, it has to be over your nose and your mouth. I've corrected a couple of our vendors who've been in the building regarding that. So we're trying our best to keep everybody healthy. On that note, 2 of our police officers were exposed to COVID, one on duty, one off. So we have testing and quarantine taking place. So this is still a real threat to our first responders. And I hope everyone will keep them in your thoughts and prayers as they continue to do the excellent job that they continue to do. On Project 47 this evening, we will be having an executive session at the end of tonight's session. Mr. Lancer is going to talk specifically about some of the things that we've been working on in the last week, and I'll let that stand for itself in that portion of the meeting. On Vera Avenue, nothing new to report from a construction standpoint. What residents will notice is that we did remove the temporary speed humps last week in preparation for the winter season. The thing to know, and if you get questions about this, to pass on to residents, is that we will not be putting those back on Vera next year. However, in the spring, summertime period, when that road project takes place, there will be actually 3 speed humps added to Vera itself. And then there will be an additional speed hump coming into Gulf Manor out of Amberley to slow people down on Elbrook. So that's all coming next year and will be funded as part of the actual road project that we're doing. As far as the speed humps themselves go, As the mayor mentioned, they are complete. What they're doing now is, as the weather finally dries up, it was too wet to put all of the paint down last week. So they're waiting for the pavement to dry so they can finish marking them. Ardmore was the wettest of all of them because those get repainted, and that's going to be getting that when it finally dries out. There's an area that was really, really wet that had lots of soaking into the concrete, but we'll get those done as weather permits. The other thing that you may notice is we are uniformly marking those speed humps. There's a sign with 15 miles per hour on each side of the speed hump to warn people that the humps are there and that they need to go 15 miles an hour when they go over them. So hopefully that'll all be done within the next week. They actually told us that would be by Thanksgiving. So kudos to Mirror Construction Company for getting that done more quickly. Update on the security system. Tomorrow they're doing the final phase. The equipment has been installed. The wires have been run. Tomorrow we will have a locksmith in the building who will be doing the rest of the doors. So we will probably be issuing new key fobs sometime before the next council meeting on November the 9th. We'll keep you abreast of that as that comes up. Just to reiterate, as the mayor had mentioned, I wanted to remind everyone that solicitor information requests. So if you're thinking of questions that you believe need clarification from Mr. Donelon, the best practice is to talk with your committee, talk to your chair of your committee. If it's about finance, talk to Mr. Betcher. If it's about the executive committee issues that they're responsible for, talk to Ms. Snyder. But please do not call Mr. Donelon directly. Please do that through me or the mayor. Just so you know, I do receive a monthly bill from Mr. Donelon. So we look at that very carefully to make sure that we're staying on budget. And if there has been a call that's not been approved, we'll be asking about that. Just to confirm and just to remind folks that that is an expense control that we're trying to exercise at this point. Not saying that it's not important to have conversations with the solicitor, but also remember that whatever question you're asking might also be relevant to other council members who it may also help. Finally, there was a policy many, many years ago that information requests from the administrator came through the committee chairs, or from the administration came through committee chairs. We are asking the mayor to implement that policy. So if there are records of any sort, or there are questions that you have regarding finances, those kinds of things, please consult with your committee chair first so that you are acting as a body, as a committee, rather than as individuals. That will be very helpful for us in terms of setting priorities and making sure that we have input from all of the council members and not just specific individuals. Mr. Mayor, in Chief Campbell's absence this evening, would you like me to go ahead and do his report while I'm talking?
Yeah, without objection, I would appreciate that.
Okay, so Chief Campbell this evening is supporting the McMillan family. There was an honor guard that took Corporal McMillan's remains from the hospital to Spring Grove Cemetery, and Gulf Manor participated in that, also in support of Officer McMillan here in Gulf Manor. The chief would like to reiterate his concern and his best wishes and prayers for the McMillan family, and also in support of Aaron. This is a very difficult time, and whatever we can do to help, we will. Also, he specifically asked that I reiterate also for Mr. Whitford, Chad's father. Seems like we've been hit with a lot of things like that this year. The September activity report for the police department, they had 252 calls for service. Out of that, there were 27 incident reports that were generated. The chief wanted you to be aware that at 6 o'clock this evening, so I'm assuming this will show up at 11 o'clock tonight, Channel 12 WKRC is airing a story regarding the U.S. Marshals Task Force, which is called Operation Autumn Hope. Operation Autumn Hope is an initiative by the U.S. Marshals to recover at-risk missing juveniles, and the Gulf Manor Police Department, with our connections with the U.S. Marshals, is helping in that effort. So I applaud our police department and their interest not only in helping the community, but the Gulf Manor community, but also getting involved in Greater Hamilton County, which helps to protect our community as the whole.
And I would encourage people to check out that the link is online now already. I've checked it out, and I would encourage you all to, if you've missed the evening report, to go ahead and get online and check it out. We may be able to send that link out maybe later in the week as well to make sure everyone's able to see it. It's something that we can be proud of, that we're part of that task force.
Thank you. Finally, Halloween. The big day is coming up on Saturday. Although the village did not officially take a stance on Halloween this year, wanted to make you aware that for some of the things that are happening out in the village, the police department will have an extra patrol car on duty that night from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. So, you'll see them out and about. They're not tossing candy out this year, but they will be making sure that our children are safe as they do their annual thing.
Will they be receiving candy?
Good question. They'll have to wash it when they get home, according to the mayor. That is the end of Chief Campbell's report and my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Hirth. Do we have a fiscal officer report, Mr. Lancer?
Yes, 2 items. First, for consideration this evening is a request by administration to amend appropriations. As has occurred previously, the village is eligible for and has received an additional inflow of monies from the state in order to offset potential revenue losses stemming from the local response to COVID-19. The village has received an additional $128,000 from the state through the CARES Act. In order for the village to use these resources, however, a new fund must be established and the resources must be accounted for as additional revenues and appropriated accordingly. It's the intention of administration to do so and to make these resources available for immediate village use. As with previous resources received by the state as part of the CARES Act, the use of these resources is time limited and must be spent or returned to the state no later than January 1st, 2021. If anyone has any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them.
Any
No.
questions?
Andy, do you see any needs right now that we're going to need it for? I assume masks and PPE stuff, but anything else? Or?
Yeah, Ron might be in a better position because he's been overviewing he's been tracking the projects and spending of that. Ron, do you have
Yeah,
anything
actually,
to add?
so there are a number of projects that have been started, and as I mentioned in the Finance Committee this evening, we'll have a full list of those projects for you at the next council meeting on November the 9th. We'll report that to executive and to the full council. A couple of the things that we've done is we created the new wheelchair ramp, which will allow us to confine voting to the community hall. So people will not be walking through the main administration building that day. That's also facilitated our ability to hold court on a regular basis throughout the summer. The model for doing court is going to have to change because the tent will come down. That's been out at that back door on November the 4th after Election Day. But the chief is working on some things with his folks to do, waiting in your car and being summoned to the courtroom when it's your turn. We're working on the security system, replacing the touchless system that we had. We're working on some things with the park. There's a lot of small stuff. All of this magic of electronics that we're all on now was funded through COVID funding. There's a lot of PPE that's available in case we go through this again and that the departments are using to keep the building clean and sanitized. One of the things that I would mention that Mayor, I forgot to put this in my report. We were talking about this earlier. On election day, we will have Golf Manor branded PPE to hand out to residents who need it as they come through for voting. We also have the Station 47 support buttons that we would like to pass out to people on their way out. I'm going to need volunteers to do that. So if you know of someone who would be available to do that, I'm cautious about that because with the number of people who are going to be here in the building, I don't want to create a situation where people might be exposed to COVID. So social distancing and mask wearing will all have to be a part of that. One thing that came up in our county administrators meeting last week, if there are funds that we need to return back that we haven't used, fire districts such as the Little Miami Fire District is not eligible for the COVID funding that we are eligible for. They've gotten a very small amount of reimbursement. Our district, Deer Park, Silverton, Sims Township, trying to think who else. There's a fourth one. We are all funded through a tax levy. Madeira Indian Hill is different in that they actually do a contract. Madeira and Indian Hill split the cost, so they do not tax. We believe that since school districts are taxed, fire districts should also be recognized as municipal authorities such as villages and cities and school districts and should be eligible for this funding. When you look at Golf Manor, our first responders are our fire district specifically for COVID. So they should be eligible to get reimbursement for expenses above and beyond PPE and other equipment in addition to overtime that they've used. So we asked the county administrator if there was a mechanism that's available that can they create one that allows us to say, for example, there's $50,000 we aren't going to use. Can we specifically earmark that to go to the fire district? They indicated a willingness to check into that. I was hoping we'd have an answer about that before we got to this council meeting, but I believe in the fire board meeting, Mel Taylor, who's the administrator at Columbia Township, also spoke in favor of this approach. And we will let you know as soon as we have some kind of reaction from the county about whether or not this is something that can be done. I would much rather see funds that come to us help people who are helping our residents as opposed to just sending it back to a big pool and having it possibly redistributed to people that aren't helping our residents.
Thank you, Mr. Hirth. Is there anything else, Mr. Lanzer, to the fiscal officer report?
Yeah, I have the September financial packet I'd like to review briefly. For the month of September, the village has an adjusted bank balance of $2.8 million. Of this, 2.6 can be found in the village's primary checking account, with the remaining balance residing in the village's two law enforcement supplemental funds. As I mentioned in previous reports, the majority of the $2.6 million in the village's primary checking account is actually rests in several dedicated road and street funds for the village and can only be used for those purposes. In September, the village had 77 payments clear in the amount of $197,000. The top 5 payment payees for September were payroll in the amount of $70,000, Ohio Police and Fire pension in the amount of $22,000, Rumpke in the amount of $18,000, Cozy, which is the employer health insurance, in the amount of $15,000 and OPERS in the amount of $10,000. As for village receipts, the village received 31 payments totaling $695,000 for the month of September. The largest sources of revenue over this period were the second half real estate property taxes, excuse me, which totaled $523,000. And from RETA, we received over $81,000 from RETA for the month of September. As for the general fund specific, revenue for the month was $424,000. This figure is approximately $305,000 more than what the village generated over the same period last year. The reason for this was, again, the village received the second half property taxes, which for the general fund amounted to $298,000, as well as village income taxes, which were in the amount of $84,000. Both income taxes and property taxes were higher than what the village received last year. So if I can get back to property taxes real briefly, we received $62,000 more than what was forecasted in real estate property taxes. And the total real estate property tax was $658,000 for 2020. In terms of income tax, again, the village received $84,000 in income taxes for the month of September. This is more than $41,000 more than what the village received during September 2019. Total village income tax receipts for the year now stand, or as of then, as of September, stood at $650,000 for the year, $27,000 more than what the village received through September 2019. At this time, the village is on track to exceed the income tax revenue forecast for fiscal year 2020. As for appropriations, the village spent $145,000 in September. This figure is a slight increase from what was spent by the village when compared to that from September 2019 in the amount of approximately $12,000. However, total village general fund spend for the year remains significantly below that of the previous year in the amount of over $73,000. So village administration continues to anticipate a decline in total village spend through the end of the year when compared to that from last year. Again, this is the result of a strategic reorganization of village personnel and the implementation of strict purchasing and spending controls among village departments in an effort to protect village resources in response to the impact of COVID-19 on the local economy. End of report. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Thank you, Mr. Lanzer. And in the absence of any questions, which I'll say this very slowly, if there's no further questions, then could we have a second call for quorum?
Couple things, Andy. This should be quick. I assume the increase again is probably in the revenue or income from property and income taxes is due to RETA and also increased property values. Is that fair to say? We're still kind of moving that direction as a result of those things?
Yeah, so in terms of income tax, I think we're on track to actually bring in close to what we brought in last year. We had to, if you recall, we had to reduce at the advice of RETA, we reduced, we lowered our expectations for income tax receipts due to COVID. I think we're actually on track to match or get close to where we ended the year last year in income tax receipts. As for general fund property taxes, it's hard. That's a question that the auditor is better positioned to answer. It's hard to know whether it's due to increased property values or there's more inventory. But I'm happy to make that request to see if the county auditor can make that determination. Either way, again, we're over $60,000 more than what we forecasted and we are a little bit more than what we brought in last year in terms of income tax receipt or property tax receipts.
I would like it if you'd ask that question, because in just my travels talking to residents, those are things I like to know, or at least be able to allude to, about the good things that are the good things that are kind of happening from the leadership in the last few years. So it makes me feel better about it too. Thank you.
Hey, Andy, I have a question also. Is there a way to know how much of that income tax revenue is coming from the employees of the Golf Manor businesses versus the residents?
Mr. Donlin, did you want to talk about that?
I mean, we can talk in general terms. We can't talk about the specific taxpayer and their taxpayer responsibilities. In most communities, you're down around 20% or less that are actually your residents who are paying because of the credit that you give. Many people work outside of the community. So one could conclude that the vast majority of those monies coming in are based upon employers throughout the village. But we can't get into a specific as to which employer is paying what amount of money.
I mean, do we have an idea as an aggregate of all the employers in the village? I mean, the reason I ask is because I want to measure that against against future activity, because I know we had talked about increasing the economic viability of businesses moving here, and it'd be interesting to see what those trends were.
You know, we could probably ask Rita if they can give us a percentage breakdown and maybe present it at the next finance committee report meeting.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
All right, great. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, council needs to accept the financial report.
Motion to accept the September finance report.
I'll make a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, without objection, say that's unanimous. May I have my call for quorum now?
Yes, Mr. Betcher,
Present.
Ms. Cheney,
Present.
Mr. Knipp,
I'm here.
Mr. Pridnoff,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Here.
Mr. Van Horn.
Present.
All members present.
Thank you. Mr. Solicitor, do I understand that you have some legislation in discussion?
Yes, thank you. We have ordinance 2020-11, and may I have a motion to read that by title only?
Motion to read by title only.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is ordinance number 2020-11, an ordinance to amend appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the Village of Golf Manor for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2020. We need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
This is
Thank you,
the
Mr.
ordinance that Mr. Lanzer mentioned, which is balancing the books. I think it's through the third quarter for different appropriations, where what we do is periodically throughout the year, we adjust different fund balances to match up expenditures with our budget. So this is our third quarter adjustment. A lot of these adjustments we've made this year have been a result of the COVID funds that have come in periodically to the village. So if there's any other questions or comments, we would do a roll call vote.
All right, roll call, please, Mr. Lanzer.
Mr. Betcher,
Yes.
Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
Mr. Knipp,
Yes.
Mr. Pridnoff,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn.
Yes.
Then so that this takes effect immediately. It's not emergency. Appropriations do not require an emergency, but I do need to suspend the second and third reading. So I'll need a motion to suspend the rules and then a roll call vote.
So motioned.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call. Mr. Betcher,
Yes.
Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
Mr. Knipp,
Yes.
Mr. Pridnoff,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn.
Yes.
All members voted.
Thank you. The second piece of legislation is resolution number 2020-17, and may I have a motion to read that by title only?
Motion to read by title only.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Without objection, take that as unanimous.
This is resolution number 2020-17, a resolution finding that public safety personnel are substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the COVID-19 public health emergency. I need a motion and a second.
Motion. Second.
I think Mr. Lanzer mentioned this as well during his report, and that is a request that we have an acknowledgement of the key role that our personnel play in mitigating or fighting the COVID crisis. This is being requested broadly of all communities so we can qualify public safety wages as a response to COVID-19 and seek reimbursement of those or fund those through various COVID funds that are coming down through the state of Ohio. So it should be without saying that public safety personnel are substantially dedicated to and frontline workers, but they've asked us to pass the resolution anyway. Questions or comments?
I'd like to take a moment to make a comment on it. My understanding on this, I'm going to be looking into it more tomorrow, as there was and the reason why I'm looking into it is there seems to have, I've heard by way of Mr. Hurth, there seems to have been some recent reports from some county officials that contradict what I was thinking is the case concerning these funds, and the reason for this resolution right now is that early on there was a debate between the state auditor's office, what they were saying about how some of these funds could be used, and the state auditors are the ones that will come after you after you've used the money and say that you haven't used it appropriately. There was a debate between them and the U.S. Treasury's office about how this money could be used. And very early on, the U.S. Treasury was saying, first responders are on the front lines of COVID. You can use this money as salary replacement. So like the salary that you paid folks going back March, June, July, August, this money that's coming in now, you can designate to recoup that part and then shift funds over into your general fund. State Auditor's Office was saying no to that, but my understanding 2 weeks ago was that they changed course and said, yes, that is our understanding of how you can use this money, but you need to be making these declarations that your police department, for instance, is on the front lines of this COVID stuff going on. So that's my understanding of why we're doing all this, but I'll be looking more in tomorrow about whether the state auditor's office still has that same view about how we can be using these funds. It goes directly to the point that Mr. Hurth was talking earlier about if there's funds that we don't use, they need to be sent back. And of course, if it's funds that we can use for salary that we've already paid, we're not sending anything back. Right.
Yeah, following that up in some of the text of the sample resolution that they asked all of us to adopt, it makes numerous references to Office of Budget and Management guidance, which is the federal level, Department of Treasury guidance. So what they're trying to do is take that federal language and mirror it up with the state of Ohio for audit purposes.
All right, any other questions on any of that? Do we need a roll call at this time?
Yes.
Ready? Mr. Betcher,
Yes.
Ms. Chaney,
Yes.
Mr. Knipp,
Yes.
Mr. Pridnoff,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn.
Yes.
Ordinance or resolution passes.
One other note to finish my report The process which allows us to hold these meetings by video conference or telephone conference was adopted back in March, April as an amendment to RC 12122, the Ohio Sunshine Act. And in that legislation, it said that we could do this, remote meetings, so long as an emergency declaration was in place, but at the outside, it would expire December 1. Back in the springtime, no one thought we'd still be battling all this as we quickly approach Thanksgiving. So the legislature is acutely aware that this authority expires coming up here at the end of the month. So there's been a push as soon as they get back in session after the election to extend 121.22's exception, again, during a gubernatorial declared emergency. Some of the things we've learned along the way, there's talk about when they set that next deadline of expiration, making it 30 days after that. And the reason for that would be where communities have already announced a meeting or announced a hearing. They don't want them to scramble, suddenly have to shift gears. So it'll be a slower rollout once the emergency declaration is lifted. There has been some push to make this a permanent way of doing business. And there's been a huge pushback of not doing it because of the need for transparency and the need for public meetings. We think this is going to continue well into the spring. We're welcoming that the governor and the legislature are going to help out because it does provide a safe way for people to meet and for citizens to participate. There's also been some discussion of requiring it to be by video and not permitting it by telephone. But given the limits on technology for some households, I think they're going to keep it in place if both video or telephone meetings are permitted. So I'll keep you posted as soon as they get back in November and make this one of their top priorities to extend this authority to us. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Donnellan. Any other questions? And if not, I'll ask if there is a executive committee report from Chair Ms. Snyder.
There is not. We did not meet tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Snyder. Is there an education report, Ms. Cheney?
No report.
Thank you, Ms. Cheney. Is there a nonprofit report, Mr. Pridenoff?
No report.
All right. Is there a fire district board member report, Mr. Van Harn and Mr. Lancer?
Yes, there is. The next Little Miami Fire Board virtual meeting will be held on Wednesday, November 18th, 2020 at 6 p.m. The October 21st board meeting and financial report are available on the website. And Mr. Van Harn.
You may be muted, Mr. Van Harn.
Yeah, the results of the cookie sale are in. Haven Van Harn did a cookie sale again for Station 47 for her Haven Van Harn Day that the mayor proclaimed last year. I think I have a picture. Oh, I can't share the screen, but anyway, I've heard giving the check to Captain Eric Lett this past week. But I'll just read what she said. Haven just went for a walk. I was going to have her read it, but she's not here. So my name is Haven Van Harn. In September 2019, the mayor announced to me and my village that September 29th would be Haven Van Harn Day. I said I wanted to be a day of community, respecting others' property, fun, volunteering, helping others. To celebrate, I did another cookie sale with the help of my dad. With the help of all our neighbors, we had about 40 orders to deliver and got other donations. So here is a check for $551.47. I like that one person added 47 cents because this was for Station 47. All I ask the fire department is that you use the money for your comfort needs to make the firehouse more homey. Thank you for helping our community. So I gave the check to the Little Miami Fire District, and they're going to make sure it gets directed to Station 47 for what they need for the fire station. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van Harn and Haven Van Harn. Is that end of report? All right, very good. Planning Commission report, Mr. Betcher.
No report.
Next Planning Commission meeting scheduled for Monday, December 7th, 2020, 6:30 PM, pending any business. Engagement Committee, any report, Mr. Knipp?
No report.
All right. Finance Committee, Mr. Betcher.
Finance Committee had a brief meeting this evening, most of which I think was covered during Mr. Lanzer's report. There was a brief discussion about the HSA program for employees. Just continuing that, it runs calendar year to calendar year. So just a heads up on that. Appropriations for 2021 will come through next Finance Committee meeting in November. So be on the lookout for that for the November council meeting. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you. I have your minutes here to be signed, and it looks like I could sign in your place, or I'm presuming that you guys agreed on the minutes this evening. These are the minutes for September 14th. Would you have me sign those, or do you want to come in?
Up to you if you're comfortable signing those without having been present at the meeting.
I'm okay signing that the group agreed to these as the minutes, if that is your word here on record.
Indeed.
All right, thank you. And with that, the announcements that we have, I know that we needed to go to an executive session. I'm just trying to see, is there anything else that we need to do on the agenda before we go into executive session? I see some announcements here. Next council meeting scheduled for Monday, November 9th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Next executive committee meeting scheduled for Monday, November 9th, 2020, 6 p.m. Let's see, scheduled dates for council and committee meetings. Monday, November 23rd, 7 p.m. Appropriations. Monday, December 14th, 7 p.m. If no pending business, we'll cancel this meeting. And then Monday, January 11th, 2021, 7 p.m. Let's see, and Monday, January 25th, 2021, 7 p.m. for our two meetings in January. Any discussion or suggestions concerning those? And if not, I'll ask for a roll call to go into executive session for matters of personnel and compensation.
So, Mr. Mayor, before we do that, the council schedule for 2021, since we likely will not meet in December, I will have a draft of that for council at the November 9th meeting, and I'll consult with Mr. Pridenoff on the calendar, and then hopefully council will be able to pass that at the November 23rd meeting.
All right.
As a side point, Ron, I'll try and send a list of dates that I know definitely are problems.
That'd be helpful. Thank you.
Pleasure.
And a reminder to all folks that are either watching us remotely now or who are watching a recording of this later, we're going to go dark as we go into our executive session meeting. We will return after our meeting, but then we will immediately adjourn after that. So without further ado, do we have a roll call on going into executive
Need a
session?
motion first.
So motion.
Second.
And that was for matters of personnel compensation, correct?
Yes.
That was a motion to move into executive session for matters of personnel and compensation.
Thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
Pridenoff.
I have a first and a second. Mr. Betcher,
Yes.
Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
Mr. Knipp,
Yes.
Mr. Pridenoff,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to send everybody to a breakout room. I'll see you on the other side.